5 yards. 2 weeks till the draft, and let's just dive right in because we got a lot to talk about with the Jets on the clock at pick number 2. Rich, can you break down what the latest is? Because it feels like there was all this momentum for Reese, and now over the last couple of days, you've had some prominent NFL insiders and draft analysts like Albert Breer, Daniel Jeremiah, Peter Schrager, all say that from their sources, they're hearing it's going to be David Bailey, not Reese. So what do you make of that, and where do things stand in your opinion?
Yeah, so the first thing is it's really not the Jets changing course. I object to that perception. That I think what happens is as you get closer to the draft, reporters start having a little bit more access to their sources. Their sources might have a little more information to share, and that's why you see stuff coming out closer to the draft. And as we get closer, I guarantee you from a week from now, when the teams are done with their draft meetings and these guys come out of the war rooms and they start calling people around the league and reporters start picking up on that information, it could change even again. So, I think we've thought all along Reese or Bailey. Those guys that you mentioned are thinking right now it's Bailey. Wouldn't shock me either way. It depends who you talk to. I mean, all those three guys could be talking to the same person who thinks it's going to be Bailey. I can guarantee you this. No one on the Jets is leaking who they're going to pick. You try to play detective. You try to connect dots, talking to people around the league who might know, and you come up with a conclusion. So that's where things stand right now. We still got 2 weeks to go. We got a lot of smoke to get through.
By the way, my 11-year-old son knows the Jets are taking a defender too, and there's only so many names that have graded out highly enough where the process of deduction leads us to Bailey, and before that, Reese. Rich, you've been doing this how many years? You've been on the Jets beat how many years? Have the Jets ever told you, hey, Rich, maybe outside of Keyshawn, because everybody knew that was going to happen, hey, Rich, we're taking this guy. Really, I mean, you're as connected to them as anybody with any team around. Has anybody ever said that to you, ever?
Actually, Keyshawn didn't even know until the morning of the draft.
Okay, there you go.
They were going through a lot of contract negotiations there. But, no one's come right out and said, I'd have to go through year by year and see, what the strategy was there. No one comes out and says, hey, we're taking so-and-so. I mean, I think we all knew in 2021 that Zach Wilson was going to be the second pick because we all knew Trevor Lawrence was going 1. And the Jets, they didn't come out and say they were taking Zach Wilson, but I think it was kind of a wink and a nod that we all knew. That was the word coming out of the building. It's different when you're in the second pick. Maybe there'll be a little bit more free with the information, knowing that nothing can really disrupt their plan. We all know Mendoza's going number 1, so it's not like someone's going to trade above them and steal Reese or Bailey. So maybe the Jets will be a little bit more forthcoming, but generally speaking, no one's advertising who they're going to pick.
Jake, I think one of the things the Jets had to do, and I think they're in the process of doing this, is, first of all, like football stuff. All right, so get the penalties down, learn how to stop somebody in the passing game, shore up this and shore up everything, really, outside of the O-line. But even before all that, the Jets had to button up the building. There were just too many loose lips, putting out information, and really, spilling state secrets. It was sloppy. It was messy. So the fact that it seems buttoned up now, even with this new report that it's going to be Bailey, which I'm not fully buying, I think it's a sign, Jake, that the overall health of the Jets building is kind of going in the right direction. You agree?
I like that take. If they're able to then parlay what you're saying and maybe try and convince someone they're taking a certain player so they actually could get out of pick 2, because I think you and I are in agreement. I know, Rich, you've talked about it.
Yeah.
That the best thing for the Jets, we could debate Reese and David Bailey, and we'll do it this show. We'll do it next week leading into the draft, of course. I think the best thing is for them to find a trade partner. Rich, they had breakfast with Jeremiah Love. That came out last week. I mean, I just think the fact that no one necessarily knows what direction the Jets are going, I don't think that's a bad thing. I just would love for it to maybe lead to some sort of trade back from 2.
Yeah, just for example, what if the Jets have intel that the Arizona Cardinals are head over heels in love with David Bailey, picking right behind them? Maybe the Cardinals feel like it's worth it to give up a draft pick to move up 1 spot to get their guy. The Jets move to 3 and happily accept Reese and the extra draft capital that comes along with it. That could be part of the strategy as well. There's so much smoke that is sent around the league at this time of the year. We know that the fans, that's what makes it so fun, is because you just never really know. But you do hear some things, like I mentioned on the show a couple of weeks ago, that whole Jackson Smith and Jigba thing. I knew the Jets weren't going to pick him going into that. I had a pretty good source, inside who tipped me off on that. But, occasionally you come across a crumb like that. But it's, like I said, there's so much. And the Jets are still going through their draft meetings. Really, they only picked it up this past Monday with all the scouts. They're meeting probably 12 hours a day to put together a draft board. And then once that gets done, probably later next week, then Muji will start calling around the league to get a feel for what other teams want to do in terms of moving up or down.
Listen, you got to play the game. To me, scared money's never going to win money. It's just not going to. We all know that from the casino. It doesn't happen. So while you don't actually put a sign out in Florham Park, hey, we want to trade, what you do is, you plant a little here, plant a little there, and then you try to entice somebody reading the tea leaves. Maybe the Cardinals love Bailey. Maybe that's why this is out there now. And then through the process of elimination, you've got to find the teams that might be or more inclined to go defense. Like, I think Kansas City's going receiver. I think Miami's going receiver. I think the Saints are going defense. I think the Cardinals probably go defense if they don't go O-line. I think the Giants could go O-line or defense. So once you start to whittle away the teams that aren't going defense, you'll focus in on them. You make some calls. You always answer when the phone rings. And maybe you strike a deal, and maybe it's a win-win. Maybe there's more draft equity, which is what I want, because I don't love Bailey and I don't love Reese.
The traditional pick here for the Jets would be to take Bailey because he is the pure edge rusher. That's the positional value. While some scouts believe that Reese has a higher ceiling than Bailey, he's kind of a hybrid player. He's the off-ball linebacker. He can be an edge rusher. So there's a little bit more projection, and teams get a little skittish when they're projecting in the top 5, especially. You want the safest guy in the top 5 as possible, if there is such a thing. And so if the Jets want to play it really safe, probably David Bailey would be the pick. If they want to get creative, imaginative with their scheme, and bring in a really versatile guy who I think would be the better pick, then it would be Reese.
Totally agree. Rich Cimini, Brandon Tierney, Jake Asman with you. Episode number 3 of the Jets Collective, presented by Prize Picks. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We're nearing 3,000 subscribers already by our 3rd episode. So big thank you to everyone who has tuned into the show. Again, the show's available in audio form as well on Spotify, Apple, and iHeart Podcasts. Rich, I agree with you on Reese. I'm curious, do you think part of the Jets' thought process here is the head coach is on the hot seat? He needs to show results in his 2nd year. And if Bailey's further along as a pass rusher than Reese, it's maybe an easier sell to ownership to say, hey, we got a guy at number 2 who showed a lot as a rookie, had maybe 10 sacks. Like, is the safer pick, is that thought process also part of the job security if they go with the David Bailey selection? Because I like David Bailey. If they think he's the best player, take him. What I don't want is the Jets basing a decision based on who's the best player for 2026. I want the guy who's the best player for the next 5+ years.
Yeah, I totally hear that. Look, if it's Bailey or it's Reese, they're both going to play a lot as rookies. I mean, they are going to be on the field a lot. Bailey probably more so on 3rd downs, and then they'll work him into the rotation. You draft a guy 2nd, he's going to be on the field a lot. So I don't know if your win now plus this win later theory applies in this case. Now, if there were a quarterback involved, I would say then you get into that whole, do we build for the future or do we take the win now player? I don't think that applies here because no matter who they pick, this guy's going to be playing a whole lot of football. If there were just say, for example, it's not accurate, but just say Ty Simpson was a factor in the top 5, then you're talking about a guy who's probably going to sit on the bench for a year. That's a completely different argument with a coach who's got to win now. Then I could see Aaron Glenn getting on the table and say, no, I want a defensive player. I don't want a quarterback. I want a guy who can help me now. But I don't think that's the case here.